Hello and welcome to a slightly different video here on the Critical Focus shenanigans. I was cordially invited by my dear member Mr. Jonas Fering to come and participate in the Copenhagen Grand Clash, and of course I couldn't resist. Matthias was also invited of course, but he sadly couldn't make it. Hopefully next time he'll tag along, that would be awesome. The format was Nemesis and best of 2 over 5 games each, so a total of 10 games over the course of the day, with a glory difference to separate any ties. I debated with myself long and hard as to what warband to take. First and foremost, I went with the style of warband I truly enjoy, and my top candidates came down to either Grisel's Arenae or Hexbane's Hunters. I had a couple of dark horse options as well, with Skitterchanks and the Brethren, but ultimately, as a lover of witch hunters and a collector of Cities of Sigmar, I went with my trusted Hexbane Hunters. I tried out several decks, Daring Delvers, Malevolent Masks, Breakneck Slaughter, but I finally settled on Void-Cursed Thralls. In hindsight, I think Breakneck Slaughter could have been a really solid option, as well as I struggled with getting into the fray versus the cager oppositions I came up against with my lackluster move. But the Void-Cursed Thralls does also offer several quite neat little tricks that are quite fun to pull off. This is the deck I took, and as you can see, I settled for 11 upgrades and 11 ploys respectively, and the reasoning here was basically there's a lot of restricted upgrades that are also quite strong, so I didn't want to leave anything out, and with the salvage rule and such killable fighters as I have, a lot of salvaging was inevitable. So I figured I would get through my deck quite neatly. Was it the right decision? Maybe not, and there's probably a couple of tweaks I could have made. So the trip down to Copenhagen took me just about 2 hours from door to door, since I live in the southernmost district of Sweden, so very smooth sailing for me there. Here's a couple of shots from the bridge between the neighboring countries and the tunnel just before reaching Denmark as well. I couldn't get the Danish parking app to cooperate, so I just had to wing it and hope for no ticket, and I was lucky enough to dodge that bullet. The venue for the tournament was the 3rd floor of Valby Kulturhus at a place called Spillaboratoriet. Sorry for the butchering of the Danish language. So that basically means the game lab. A really nice place with a cafe at the ground floor where I had lunch with some other traveling Swedes. We were 27, I think, players, and no less than 4 of us took Hexbane's Hunters. I'm not sure on what builds the other took. I know at least one had the Breakneck Slaughter. I went in with 0 expectations, as I've never done a real proper tournament participation before. So if it was 10 losses for me, but 100% fun, I'd be most pleased as well. In the first round, I came up against Noah, who played the Brethren of the Bolt. So an Order of Azure face-off. Obviously, Hexbane's Hunters had concluded that the Brethren's worship of Father Sigmar had taken on scary proportions, and they had to be put in their place and to the torch. The round started off with me making a major mistake by shuffling out the after an activation there's a surviving Void-Cursed enemy fighter, since that was just out-win score. We need to have one Void-Cursed fighter at the start. I totally missed the fact that he also played Void-Cursed Thralls, so yeah. Nevertheless, I drew into some other decent stuff, and with the amount of mostly defensive crits for Amos I rolled in the first game, Sigmar must have surely been on my side. Noah was a great sport containing most of his frustration though. In my first activation I charged in with a Void-Cursed Woodcutter with a reactionary assist from Rat Spike and scored something which I've now forgotten. I equipped him with the lucky Hexpeak trinket for +1 defense, then he basically tanked a storm of Azurite bolts for the rest of the game, while my team took on the other lightning-addled lunatics. The game ended with me toppling the father from the shoulders of his adopted son. In game number 2, the roles balanced out quite nicely with him getting some juicy crits up front, but I still had a quite smooth draw, and I stuck to my guns and played the long game. There's some juicy backloaded glory in the end phases for Hexbanes. The game ended on high with me equipping Amos yet again, certainly the MVP over these 2 games, with Woodcutter Strength and with the +1 dice card to Void-Cursed Fighters and another +1 upgrade card and the +1 glory card. I had a quite gory coup de grace of Friar Galvic there with doing 8 damage to him. That's, yeah, insane. I think that was basically the only time I actually did something useful with the woodcutter strength. He basically always died in the other games, and the card had to be salvaged. So total glory for me over 2 games was 37 versus Noah's 24. So 2 wins for me there. A good sport who really picked up in later rounds and played somewhat less aggressive when he came up versus other Hexbane warbands. And from what I've picked up, he did way better with that approach. Then after lunch with my fellow Swedes from Gothenburg and Skövde, really nice blokes, it was time for round 2, and I was about to get quite humbled. I got paired with a cagey Discord build paired with the Rhymeworm's Bite. I don't really have many nice things to say about that rival deck, but I have a lot of nice things to say about the player. He was great and skilled as an opponent, and he hadn't actually played the game for that long, so he did really well. But with some crucial attacks landing there, I could have easily at least won one of those games. The second game, although I whiffed almost everything, I ended on 12 glory versus his 13. So the first game he chose to go with a long board as well, and I didn't have any chance really to catch up to him there. My deck doesn't require a ton of kills, but it does require at least some attacks to land, and yeah, it was a rough sailing for the first round, but in the second game I had made it a lot closer. The abundance of ping from the pairing between Discord and the Rhymeworm's Bite was quite devastating for my low wound fighters, and I simply couldn't compete over the 2 games. Here I could probably have benefited greatly from the extra move from the Breakneck Slaughter, but control is a good counter for aggro, and the Discord have some nasty tricks up their sleeves, and with a very skilled player captaining them, I can only applaud Matthias, who also did his tournament debut with these guys. The glory total for me was 22 versus his 27, so the narrow defeat really shows here that the controlled playstyle is more about shutting down opponent's glory than really scoring a ton of glory yourself. I was in all seriousness quite salty about some really big whiffs. I think I contained it pretty well at the gaming table at least. Still, I was in good spirits after the 2 first games. The third game had me paired with yet another Discord player, Daniel from Stockholm, this time with Breakneck Slaughter, and I just don't think I had the right or the best mindset going into that game, knowing that the Discord was quite a tough matchup for me, with the 1 3-wound fighter being the only really killable option for me up front, deployed behind the wall of blubber in the form of Vexmore. I really couldn't do much to score my quite kill-heavy starting hand, and I guess the crits from my very first game came back to avenge justice upon me, because I basically over both of the Discord pairings here had very few successful attacks. But you know, dice are gonna dice. Also, the Discord players weren't really aggressive enough either, so I wasn't scoring stuff like lives well spent either. At least not fast enough. And when I finally had a damage 4 attack loaded up in game number 2 versus my second Discord opponent, he gave me the perfect blade to crumble my hopes of making it 1-1 in the second game there. And the 2 games ended with 29 glory for him and only a measly 15 for me, which is obviously quite weak. Talking to other Hexbane players though, and Discord players, they told the same story about the Discord being a really good counter for any Hexbane builds really, so that made me feel a little bit better about myself, I guess. The venue was getting really hot and humid at this point, and it was really starting to take its toll on the players. I had a terrible pulsating headache leading into the following games, and a very nice gentleman, Bastian, who did quite well with Domitan's Stormcoven paired with Seismic Shock, was kind enough to give me a couple of crucial headache pills there so I could pull through. In game number 4, I was paired with Storm of Celestus with a really nice Dane called Torben. We had so much fun chatting during the first of our 2 games that we had to abort the first game after round 2 to make way for the second game. Anyway, he was playing the Storm of Celestus, and I can't at the top of my head recall what pairing he used. In any case, I did quite well here, and in both games I used the reaction to Void Curse all adjacent fighters after being taken out of action. With some other cards, I managed to Void Curse pretty much all of his ranged fighters, disabling their ranged 3 attacks and their ability to inspire, so that was quite a rough matchup for him there. With the first game cut short and with possibly 6-7 more glory in the tank for me in the third round, the total after 2 games ended on 25 for me and 14 glory for Torben. So in game number 5, which was the last game there, or the last couple of games, after dinner, It was a real situation of mushy brain going on with a lot of tired players, and I got paired with the Dread Pageant, who also used the Void Cursed Thralls. The guy was called Lars, and he's also an avid watcher of the channel, so it was really nice to get to meet him and play with him. I had quite good dice in both of these games, but I also feel I had learned at that point a lot from my defeats, and I came, albeit very tired, in with a good feeling and a winning mentality to end on a high. I used the reactionary moves and the baiting dogs to good effect, and I had lots of dice and assist in my attacks. And in those situations, you are gonna land your attacks more often than not. The 2 games ended with 2 wins and a total of 35 glory for me and 19 for Lars. The overall result gave me a 5th place, and unsurprisingly really another Rhymeworm deck was at the forefront of the event, but I guess slightly more surprisingly it was with the Wormspat, captained to no less than 9 wins and a draw by Anders Bang, earning him the golden ticket to the World Championship. Number 2 was Mats Biersch, who managed to win 8 and a draw 2 with Serenis Races. I'm not sure on the pairing there, but that might have also been a Rhymeworm pairing, but I'm not sure. Number 3 was a young Polish guy who pulled out no less than 8 wins and 2 losses with the Dreppers, while fellow Swede Olof managed to get 4th with Skittershanks Klåpack with 6 wins, 1 draw and 2 losses, just in front of my very self on 5th. The best painted was won by Emil's stunning NMM Crimson Court, and I was very happy to receive a Death Gorge box for winning the prize for most sporting opponent, which to be honest feels absolutely fantastic. But to be fair, everyone I played with seemed to be very nice people. So a big thank you to organizers Thomas and Jonas, who ran a very well ran event with some sweet loot for place 1 to 4, best painted, custom made dice trays for the first 14 I think, successful critical hits or defense dice, and some other stuff I can't really recall at the top of my head right now. I am definitely coming back to Copenhagen next year, if they want to have me. Cheers, bye. This is me again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. All of those things help me out immensely. If you feel so inclined, do consider to become a member to gain a greater influence over the content, early access and just generally help me out. If you like this particular video especially much, feel free to click the thanks button as well to leave a small donation. All of those things are 100% optional, and I will never keep videos permanently locked behind a paywall, as my main goal is to spread the love for these games as much as possible. A special thanks to my members, whose legendary names are scrolling right before your eyes at this very instant. Don't forget, the games are not only about winning, but also creating unforgettable memories with your friends and opponents. That's it for me. See you soon. Bye bye.